Welcome to Still Evolving, where we explore the truth behind lasting performance and resilience. Rather than relying on perfection or superhuman ability, our conversation will highlight how real strength emerges through simple, intentional habits grounded in self-compassion, adaptability, and the ability to grow through life's inevitable setbacks. Today's guest is Dr. Phoebe Chalk-Wadsworth, President and CEO of Chalk Consulting, a firm she founded to help nonprofits, schools, and athletic organizations strengthen fundraising strategy and drive transformational growth. With more than 30 years of experience in higher education and nonprofit leadership, Phoebe is known for her relationship-driven approach and her ability to build sustainable fundraising systems that align leadership and inspire donor investment. Prior to launching Chalk Consulting, she spent over 3 decades at the University of Arizona, where she helped raise more than $29 million and contributed to multiple comprehensive capital campaigns. Please welcome Phoebe to Still Evolving. Phoebe, welcome to Still Evolving. I am so excited and very grateful to have this conversation with you today. This has been a fun project for me in many ways, as I've had an opportunity to meet with many different leaders, different areas, whether it's private industry, sport, but it's always exciting also to reconnect with a colleague and friend. So thank you for being on. I very much appreciate it.
I'm so excited to be here, and it's great to see you in person via the internet.
I know. There you go. I like to start off with our guests having an opportunity to share a bit more of their background, their journey. And I've always been impressed by your journey, Phoebe. So if you can share a little bit about your background, kind of your path and the highlights therein.
Sure. Well, most of my career was in higher education. I started out, I worked with you. I was lucky to work with you at the University of
Yeah.
Arizona. So I started out actually as a student worker at the university and then decided, hey, I think I want to go down this path. I dressed in my best casual corner blue suit, for those of us that remember casual corner, walked into my boss at the time, the head of the foundation at the U of A, and handed him a job description and said, you need to hire me. And at the end of that conversation, he said, okay. So I started in as the assistant director of annual giving in the President's Club at the foundation at the U of A, and worked myself through that ranks, became the director of annual giving. And then I had a great opportunity to move over to athletics, where we worked eventually together. And I became the associate athletics director, or actually assistant athletics director, and then associate athletics director. And I oversaw a variety of areas throughout my 21-year career there, from public relations, social events, alumni engagement, fundraising. I oversaw baseball and gymnastics for a while, had fun being the cheerleading and mascot advisor. It was a run the gamut type of thing. And then after that, I went over and worked in the Eller College of Management, which is the business school at the university, and did that for around 4 years, and then decided to leave. And nearly 5 years ago, I started Chalk Consulting, which is a organization that consults with nonprofits and education institutions on fundraising strategies, feasibility studies, board engagement, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm having a ball.
That is fantastic. Quite a journey. Certainly, I'm very proud to be part of the Wildcat family. I would imagine whether it was certainly in the president's office in athletics, later in the school management, I can appreciate as a leader, you've seen your dose of change. And with that, certainly some challenge. So I'm curious, and I really like learning from our leaders on the show. If you could share back some of your lessons learned, like navigating change, challenge, or adversity. Perhaps maybe you've learned from your own personal experience. Also, the secondary way, most powerful way we learn is learning from others, maybe something you've witnessed in the leaders that you were working and serving under. But when it comes to change, challenge, adversity, what have you seen that really helps strengthen our leadership so that we can't just not only get through it, but also have an opportunity to evolve, innovate, grow, and take advantage of the opportunities it may present?
Change is hard for everybody, right? I mean, you go through, when I changed from the University of Arizona, that was hard. That was my identity, or at least that was the perception of my identity of people around me. They saw me as Miss Arizona or Red and Blue or Wildcat. And then when I wasn't there and I had my new career, how did I handle that? Like that identity that I knew, and then where I was at. And it's interesting because I was an athlete as a young kid, and then I worked with athletes and in the athletics department. And I remember thinking and talking to my husband about it and saying, "Hey, babe, this is a lot like when the athletes stop being athletes and that transition. And how did they go from being this person, everybody knows you, you have your routine, all of
Mhm.
that, and then you go into that's not your routine anymore."
Mhm.
And I had to reflect on that myself. And I really relied a lot on what I call as my posse. Who are the people that helped me, that mentored me? Some of them are still here, others have passed. And I think going to those people when you're in certain challenges and asking for constructive feedback, that's
Mhm.
really, really important. And
Mhm.
reflecting on yourself. I think, like I said, change is hard, but we all have to go through it. You know,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
embrace it, we reflect on it, and then we start to move forward on whatever it is that we're doing.
Certainly the power that comes from that connection with others, right? Like I hear you
Mhm.
talk about mentors, colleagues, just trusted confidants that you can be real and likewise they can be very direct or you can trust that they're going to shoot you straight too.
Correct.
Certainly that can be powerful. You also highlighted though the power of reflection. And oftentimes I talk a lot about the actions that come from reflection, right? Like so in the military, commonly after a mission, a training exercise, et cetera, people will have a debrief and they call it after action.
Mhm.
Well, there's a reason why it's after action, right? It's not just the actions that you took that you're reflecting on and like what are lessons learned, what can we take away, what do we want to do differently, what do we want to keep? But truly that process is meant to drive towards modified action, right? Like it's not meant to be just this passive exercise where after passive, you just kind of chill in, ruminating, or just staying in your own head. So I hear like as a leader, you standing up your consulting firm, you took with that a lot of those lessons learned and perhaps in the reflecting on those strengths, what you and the firm can provide now. But really, I just kind of wanted to highlight like you took action from that reflection. It wasn't just, hey, this might be an idea, this might be a thing.
Amy, I think you're so right because I think reflection is a huge part. People used to give me a hard time because I would say that I'm really good at hearing constructive criticism. And then I've got to take it and figure out what am I going to change or what am I not going to change. Some aspects of me aren't going to change, right? But you have to look at each situation in like situational leadership. And
Uh-huh.
you have to look at that and say, what can I adjust? I think the workplace is changing. I think people are wanting to work at home. People don't want to work at home. I think we're doing Zoom calls now. All of those things are evolving and they keep evolving pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
so having to look at those things and see how you're going to fit in that is really important. I'm told all the time I'm very direct. I already
Mm-hmm.
know I'm really direct.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I adjust that with certain people? I remember when I was hiring people, I used to tell the applicant, "Hey, I'm going to
Uh-huh.
have you sit down with the current members of the team and I want you to ask questions. I want you to
Uh-huh.
ask them style questions about me because I don't want you to come in having a different expectation and then us not meeting that."
Uh-huh.
And I shouldn't say my team, that's something I learned. The team would sit down and say, "Really? You want us to tell them the real truth?" And I said, "Yeah, I want you to be
Uh-huh.
transparent because they need to know what they're coming into with the team, the dynamics, the styles, all of that stuff. And I'm not afraid to have people know that stuff about me because it's
Mm-hmm.
the only way we're all going to get better."
Right. Lay the cards out there. I
Yep.
hear you. Because otherwise, quite frankly, that's where bait and switch happens, right?
And
It's for
some people,
many of us who can describe those stories of showing up in the first day and the first week, and then all of a sudden you're given many different cards than what you thought you were given.
yeah. And
Absolutely.
I've had employees that are the same way that, you think
Mhm.
you're getting this and you're not getting it. But I think communication is key in that.
Mhm.
Trust is key in that, and sometimes you don't always have that,
Right.
and sometimes it goes great. So you
Mhm.
have to work within those parameters and try and figure out the best situation and how to handle it.
I absolutely. And I we often use the phrase like what got you here won't keep you here. So you highlighted how the environment that we work with within the industry, the market, whether it's geopolitical risk, whether it's, just some of the fundamentals, right? I kind of crack up like my kids and how they can troubleshoot the problem on my phone under 10 seconds, something that I have to then like Google and figure out, find some manual to figure out. Certainly when we're younger, I think one advantage is that we can be more malleable. We haven't rehearsed a certain habit or pattern that we feel more comfortable in. But the flip side of that also, I think, is when, at least speaking from my experience, is when I was a younger leader, I don't think I had as a firmly grounded kind of core values, or at least using that as a compass to navigate these shifting winds, right? So I'm curious, like what I hear you saying is in many ways you're able to adapt and be flexible. And there are some cornerstone aspects of who you are, right? Like you value transparency, you value directness and communication is what I hear. That regardless of the situation, you'll fall back to because that is something perhaps that you value, that you hold significant for who you are and how you want to lead. Are there others besides transparency and that direct communication that has helped you when the storm is around you? Or maybe you've seen other very grounded and value-driven leaders also portray?
I think we've talked about self-reflection, and one of the things that I can use this story from my athletics days is one of the things I tell people all the time is when you're struggling with a situation or a particular colleague or a certain leadership style and you're like, I really don't like that, or I'm struggling with that challenge. One of the things I used to tell my team all the time was when that's happening to you, turn it around and look at yourself to see what it is that you're not liking.
Uh-huh.
Because a lot of times it has to do with how you're feeling about it. So I'll give an example. I had a colleague, and she knows the story. So if she hears this, she's going to know. But I had a colleague that worked across the hall from me. And it would kind of drive people a little nuts that she sometimes strolled in at 8:30 or 9. And I would be like, why is that bothering me? Because I'm here at 7 o'clock or 7:30. Why did it matter if she got to come in at 9 o'clock or 8:30 and no one said anything? It came back to, was I jealous that she had the ability to do that? But if I really wanted to do it, could I have asked and done it too? It's like reflecting back on yourself about what you might not be appreciating in someone else. Because generally speaking, it might be about how you're feeling about it and what you're not getting, or it might be your own ego or any of those things. And that's something that I've gotten to do better at.
Just, what is that which I can learn from this, right? Like, and being curious about yourself, your own reaction to that, like your frustration with her. Okay, well, so what's that about? What's that about? What's that saying about myself? What's that saying about her? What's that saying even about kind of like how I'm making sense of the space that we're working? It also reminds me in relationships, there's a powerful, this actually comes not even from like clinical or even like performance, but it comes more from what we have learned from family marital therapy space and this concept of mirroring. And in
Hmm.
any two relationships, most commonly what can happen is a mirroring effect. So that if we're having this conversation and I'm just getting frustrated because I feel misunderstood,
Hmm.
odds are you're likely feeling misunderstood, right? If we're having this interaction and I'm feeling slighted by something, it is highly likely that it's being mirrored. And so I think there's also power in your suggestion that when we take a moment to pause and just ask ourselves, what's going on here? And just be curious without the judgment, with whether it's
Right.
self-criticism or criticism of others, and just be curious of take a step back and pull yourself out and try to look a bit more, taking a shift of perspective. What's happening? Oftentimes, we might find there's something going on in the dynamic that both people may be experiencing. So, super helpful. You mentioned reflection, you mentioned the power of connection. I'm curious though, those are tremendous tools. And I kind of talk about a toolbox that we all have to find our specialty tools. But along the way, this is one hell of a grind. It's one hell of a journey. Like life throws us punches. It's in our professional lane, but also in our personal lane. What refuels you? What helps keep you going and helping you evolve?
When I worked at the university, all the things that I did, like sporting events or activities, those were also fun.
Mhm.
right? So you worked, but you had fun doing it. And hopefully everybody is having fun in their job, whatever that job may be.
Mhm.
But I notice now that I'm not in a university setting where I'm engaging with young people and I'm learning through their lens that I want that more. And it's going to
Mhm.
be crazy, but I love student engagement. So in my job now, I seek out interns and I love having that engagement. It's super, super important to me. And so I really rely on those interactions with young people too, because I'm now, in my late 50s and the world's changing. The viewpoints are changing. The lenses are changing. And they actually keep me more grounded in how people are perceiving things than even some of my friends that were bouncing off. And those young people, I mean, I've had 4 interns right now in Chalk Consulting. And when I was in athletics, I started a huge intern program there with, at one point, 20 some interns working for us. But they always, always provide insight that's from a different lens
Yeah.
every single time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I hear the fueling power that comes from the learning piece that I'm hearing, like just different perspective, people's different backgrounds, and certainly with a different generation, they have a very different take. But also, there's something that I hear very refueling about, like the give back, right? There's something incredibly fulfilling of passing experiences on to those who can use them as they evolve and in the pursuit of something that's really meaningful for them. So very much appreciate that one. Phoebe, to wrap, we always like to leave our audience just a share back. So everyone, as I mentioned, has their own toolbox, if you will. So how they can navigate and adapt and innovate and grow through challenge, through just the evolution that we all have, especially in our careers. But it's a grind, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm curious for you, do you have something that has really kind of been part of your routine? Like it could be a daily routine, it could be a weekly routine, but something that helps you as you've navigated in your journey and will continue to navigate that forward.
Actually, Aim, I started one about a year ago,
Okay.
and I'm a go, go, go. You know me. I go, I
Yeah.
go, I go. I worked through the night. I work on weekends. I'm a goer. And so when I get in the car now, I'm on silent mode. I turn off the radio. I don't put my headset on. And I try to do that every time I get in the car for at least 5 minutes, where my brain is quiet, where I can reflect, maybe even pray, meditate, whatever it may be to just calm me, where stuff's not constantly going.
Yeah.
And I started that about a year ago, and I do think it helps. People
Hmm.
say to me, "You just are the Energizer Bunny." And I understand that, but there are times when you've got to just quiet. And I will tell you, I got married 13 years ago and I was an older bride, and my husband brought that into my life. Just finding some peace, finding quiet time, finding
Hmm.
quiet moments. And he said to me
Yeah.
all the time, I don't care where you get it, but you got to shut off at some
Hmm.
point in time just to regroup.
Yeah. Very much appreciate that. We're inundated with the noise, right? And then it interacts with our inner noise. And so sometimes just kind of filtering some of that out and having those moments of quiet can be really, really helpful. So thank you, Phoebe, for
You're
sharing that
welcome.
one.
It was a pleasure to be here.
It was great having this conversation. Very much appreciate you and your willingness to share. And just thank you
Absolutely.
again for being on Still Evolving.
Oh, happy to be here. Great to see you, Amy.